Chapter 7. The cool days of winter passed, and the face of Egypt changed in accordance with the rhythm of the Nile, that miraculous river which brought new life and wealth each year to the long valley it watered. Each fall it overflowed its banks and spread over the fields in a silver flood. Islands disappeared, and men and animals walked about their business on a crisscross network of dikes. Each winter the waters withdrew, leaving behind a thick new layer of mud so black and fertile that two crops grew in Egypt, while other lands eked out one. Slowly the river shrank as the grain sprouted, grew, and covered the black with emerald, continued to shrink under the ever more powerful sun as the emerald ripened into gold. Now it was harvest time. Every available man went out into the fields to gather in the gold of grain and fodder. In the wake of the reapers' scythes, the black land showed again through the stubble, no longer moist and rich, but bone-hard, desiccated, and beginning to crack in all directions under the burning sun. Eventually, the cracks would spread into treacherous gashes, sometimes 10 or 15 feet deep and wide enough to trap a man's leg. Temple building ceased in this season to free more men for the fields. The faces in the stone-cutting shop changed accordingly. Only top craftsmen and young apprentices continued to work the stones. Gabu was in and out of the shop all day, usually remaining for several hours in the earlier morning or in the afternoon, personally overseeing or working alongside his craftsmen. The presence of the master, Ranofer discovered, sharpened Pai's already sharp eye and diminished his short temper to the vanishing point. To work under Pai these days was to feel yourself caught in a swarm of angry bees, all stinging, buzzing, and hurling themselves at you tirelessly. The only respite from the torment, which in Ranofer's resentful opinion caused more mistakes than it corrected, was during the midday break. In order to escape for a time from the sight of Pai as well as the sound of him, Ranofer began leaving the shop each day. He walked about the streets until the changing slope of his shadow on the heat-baked dirt underfoot told him he must return and begin again his interminable chipping at the rough red granite slab that would eventually become one side of the high priest's outer coffin. One midday, 40 long and miserable days after his apprenticeship had begun, his feet turned themselves toward the street of the goldsmiths, and carried him along the well-known way until he stood no more than a pebble's toss from Rex's courtyard wall. He went no closer, until now he had not dared to come this far. From the longing that rose inside him as he stood looking at the familiar friendly gate, he knew it had been a mistake to come at all. Still he stood and stared, and remembered until he felt the sun burning down on his bare feet, and knew his shadow had crept behind him. He turned quickly, hurried along the street, and almost collided with somebody who shot out of the apprentice's quarters at that moment. Ranofer found himself looking into Hacket's astonished face. "Ranofer!" cried his friend, and the face split into a grin of delight. "Greeting, Hacket," Ranofer said, but he backed off a step or two, suddenly overcome with self-consciousness. He had not meant to be caught hanging about Rex's shop like a stray dog. The stone dust that powdered him seemed a badge of slavery, and the two blood-stained rags about fingers of his left hand proclaimed the unskilled depths to which he had fallen. No longer was he the budding craftsman who, in spite of a menial position in the gold house, could teach apprentices their tasks. Hacket would now be far ahead of him in knowledge and skill, and needed nothing he could offer. Ranofer hid his hands behind him and scuffed a toe in the dust, realizing unhappily that Hacket was doing the same. Self-consciousness was catching. "Well," Hacket said with an effort at heartiness, "you're quite a stranger these days," as the caterpillar said to the butterfly. Ranofer smiled in spite of himself, encountered Hacket's friendly, questioning eyes, and the self-consciousness diminished. "Aye," he answered, "to myself as well as you. I do not know myself as apprentice to a stone-cutter. I do not even wish to," he added, spitting contemptuously in the dust. "You do not like it?" "I hate it." Hacket was silent. Ranofer did not blame him. There was nothing to say to such a statement. "And you, Hacket?" he went on quickly. "Tell me how the work goes at Rex." "It goes well. I have learned to draw wire, and Seta is teaching me to solder." This time Ranofer was silent. Seta's face floated before his eyes an instant, even with the scowl that his mandatory reluctantly but justly added, or that his memory reluctantly but justly added. It seemed a face as kindly as a father's compared to Pye's. Pye's image suddenly blotted out the other, and Ranofer started guiltily. "The midday is over. I must run, or I'll taste that foreman's stick." "But wait, we've scarcely said a word to each other." "I know. I wish it were different." "Can you not come again?" "Nay. Ranofer glanced toward the gold house and turned away. "I cannot come here." "Then somewhere else, at the day's end perhaps? Today! I'll meet you wherever you like." "I can do that," said Ranofer, realizing for the first time that there was nothing to prevent it, that working in different shops at different trades did not mean he and Hackett must keep to different worlds. "I will do it. Where shall we meet? The ferry landing?" "Aye, or better, the fish dock beyond. You'll surely come now." "I'll come. Goodbye till then." With a wave, Hackett made off toward the gold house, and Ranofer started at a run back to his red granite slab. His feet were light with the thought of seeing Hackett again, seeing him often, perhaps every day. All afternoon he thought of nothing but the coming meeting, and when the day was over at last, he was out of the shop and running toward the fish dock, the instant his coppers were in his sash. There's a typo. Hackett had farther to come. Ranofer stood for some moments among the great nets spread out to dry on the dock before he saw the familiar lithe figure, so much better fleshed than his own, squirming through the crowd about the ferry landing and running towards him. "I was afraid you might change your mind," Hackett panted, joyfully clapping him on the shoulder. "Come, let us get away somewhere." "The thicket by the river is cool and private," Ranofer suggested. As they started along the road, he added, "Why did you think I would change my mind?" "I don't know. You're an odd one sometimes." Hackett smiled sideways at him. Ranofer returned the smile uncomfortably, but could think of nothing to say. They turned off the road presently into the lane between the flower fields, then followed the meandering path into the thicket. Foliage arched over their heads, casting a welcome shade, made denser by the stands of tall reeds. Here there was still mud underfoot, cool and soothing after the hot-baked clay of the roads. "Ah, I can hear my toes telling each other what a fine fellow I am to bring them here," Hackett said. Look, that would make a fine place to sit." He pointed to a spot veiled from the path by only a thin fringe of swaying rushes. Something had crushed the grasses and weeds beyond down into a little nest. Hackett sloshed through the stretch of watery mud to it, then turned and bowed elaborately to Ranofer. "Come into my storeroom," as the pelican said to the fish. Ranofer grinned and obeyed. It did look like a little cool green room with walls of foliage, a door of sedge stalks, and a thick, springy carpet of matted undergrowth. There was just one space enough for them to sit side by side and stretch their feet out. "Now," Hackett said firmly, "tell me about the stonework. Come, don't pull into your shell like a tortoise. It will do you good to say out loud how much you hate it. Curse, if you like. There's no one here but me, and I don't mind." Ranofer could not help laughing. As he laughed, he felt a knot untie somewhere inside him and realized he felt better already. It was impossible to stay in a shell with Hackett around, and it was impossible to feel altogether gloomy. He began to talk about the stone-cutting shop. It was noisy. It was gritty. It was altogether horrid. The foreman was a living wasp's nest. The other apprentice, a glum and stupid nobody with a chunk of granite where his head ought to be. "That's better," Hackett said with satisfaction. "And what do you do? Shape blocks? Or what?" Ranofer told him, fairly spitting out his frustration, what he did, and how he must keep his mind on it, no matter how tired or bored he was. "Otherwise this happens," he said, extending his bandaged fingers. "And worse, oh much worse, the undercraftsman Zahotep. His hands are a ruin. Hackett, if my hands become like his, I could never go back to gold-working." He had dropped his voice with the horror he felt, and for once Hackett, too, was subdued, his eyes fixed on the blood-stained bandages. "You mean to go back to gold-working some day, then, in spite of it all?" he said. I do, Ranofer flashed him a belligerent look. You may think I cannot, but I will find a way somehow. I even know a way. I have a plan. You do? What is it? But Ranofer did not want to talk about the plan, about the donkey and the little house at the edge of the desert, and studying with Zhao. It sounded too improbable. It was safer not told. Not yet. No matter, he said. Tell me instead about the gold house. Is all the same there? Nay, not without you. Ranofer smiled one-sidedly. No doubt Seta and Gert and the others weep for me each morning before the gold is weighed. Aside from my absence, is all the same? Others are absent also. Ibni, to whom good riddance, and the scribe, you remember, Hotepek, left a week before harvesting began. His child has the falling sickness. Hotepek is taking her to Abydos, to the priest of Ra there. Rek fashioned a little amulet from the sweep for her, so the priests might say their spells over it. Meanwhile, we have a new scribe. And you have learned to draw wire and to solder? I am learning, I think, as the hare said when he tried to fly, Haket added wryly. So far I have not succeeded in making anything stick to anything else, but no doubt next week or perhaps next year. Aye, Ranofer said. My boxes fell apart too at first. Don't lose hope. One day they will stick, and then you will have no more trouble. Your father taught you to solder? Aye, but no doubt I have forgotten. It has been so long, and it will be longer before I can do it again. Curse Gaboo and his granite. The boys sat in silence a moment. Then Ranofer added, I would rather have Gaboo for a master, though, than that friend of his. What friend is that? Wenamon the mason. He comes often to the shop. He came today. He reminds me of a kef. Wenamon, replied Haket, frowning. Does he wear a long cloak, winter and summer? Aye, that's the one. I have seen him often. He lives near the apprentices' quarters. He makes me shiver, but the man I sometimes see him with is worse. A great, heavy-shouldered fellow with a scowl and a face like stone. Haket broke off and turned to Ranofer with a sudden question in his eye. That is Gaboo, Ranofer told him. Haket's expression changed. He looked at Ranofer as if he had never really seen him before, and there grew in his eyes a look of such troubled pity that Ranofer flushed and got quickly to his feet. It is late. The dark will be here soon. Wait! Haket scrambled up, too. He then hesitated, as if he did not know how to say what he wanted to. I was thinking, he said at last, if we met often, in the evening or even at midday, I could tell you all I learn. I mean, at the Gold House, unless it was something you'd learned already. That way you would have the knowledge. Then, when you come back to Rex someday, you will lack only the practice. Light broke and grew inside Ranofer. He felt as if the sun were coming up. We could do that. You could learn from Seda, and I could learn from you. Aye, aye, Haket became very excited. We'll do it every day. I will meet you here tomorrow. We could come at midday and eat our food here. Ranofer, who never had food to eat anywhere at midday, saw more shame ahead and drew into his shell again. Nay, that is, I do not know if I can get away. You got away today, Haket reminded him. Aye, but Seta says I am to try beating in the morning. Have you learned that? Nay, but beating, the temptation was too strong. All right, midday I'll come. I must get some food to bring somehow, Ranofer thought as he hurried toward home. I will save part of what I have tonight, and part of the morning's. Perhaps Gaboo will leave 2 loaves this time. Gaboo left the usual one, but there were 3 onions in a dish when Ranofer explored the dusky storeroom. Jubilant, he tucked one of them into his sash, along with the half loaf. When he had eaten the rest, however, and drunk deep from the water jar, he felt almost as empty as before. There was a small keg of salted fish in the storeroom. Its enticing aroma always filled the place, but Gaboo kept it sealed. Ranofer wandered over and inspected it, just in case, and found the usual fresh wad of clay covering the latch, with the imprint of Gaboo's ring pressed into it. He wandered away again, out into the courtyard, fingering the half-loaf in his sash. Tomorrow, midday seemed far away, and relatively unimportant compared to his present growling stomach. I will just eat half of the half, he decided, and I will save the onion. But half the onion was gone, too, before he slept. In the morning he found a dish of stewed lentils on the storeroom shelf. He looked at it in dismay. How could he tuck half of this into his sash? Scorning himself for his weakness of last night, he ate the lentils and started for the shop. A pinch of bread and half an onion, a fine midday meal to produce before Hacket's already pitying eyes. I will dig a lotus root on my way to meet him, Ranofer thought, resolutely ignoring the fact that he had no knife to pare the root, and that the strong anise flavor of lotus root had always made him feel slightly nauseated. The detour found a stand of lotuses cost him several precious moments of his the detour to find a stand of lotuses cost him several precious moments of his midday hour, and when he arrived at the little green room in the thicket, muddy root in hand, Hacket was there waiting. The latter looked up at him apologetically. "After all, I did not learn beating this morning," he said. "I had to make charcoal instead. I am sorry, but I will learn it soon, and then I will tell you." "No matter," Ranofer said, concealing his sharp disappointment. He sat down beside Hacket, eyeing the chunk of golden cheese and the 2 loaves, the salt fish and the figs spread out on his friend's lap. "I ate most of mine on the way here," he said carelessly, wondering why he had not thought of this excuse before. He took the bit of dry bread and the slightly wilted half of the onion from his sash, avoiding Hacket's eyes. When he had finished them, which he did in humiliatingly short time, he surveyed the lotus root, wiping it on the mat of crushed grasses and wondering how he was going to cut it. "I hate cheese," Hacket said suddenly. "I wish they would give us something else to eat with our bread at the apprentices' quarters. Now we never have lotus root, except boiled, and I like it better raw, don't you?" "I don't like it at all," said Ranofer, startled into truthfulness. "Do you really hate cheese?" "I do. Let's trade." Ranofer held out the lotus root almost before the words were spoken. He had not tasted cheese since his father died. "I am sorry, I have no knife to cut the lotus," he confessed. "I have. Would you like a piece of this fish, too, and a fig? I have more than I want." Ranofer caught his breath. Such good fortune was almost impossible to believe. It was impossible to believe. In the act of reaching for the fish Hacket held out, he snatched his hand back. "You don't have more than you want," he said angrily. "You don't hate cheese either. You're lying." Hacket eyed him a moment, then grinned uncertainly. "All right, but you were lying too when you said you ate most of your food on the way here. I could tell by the look of it you saved it from last night." "And if I did?" Ranofer jumped to his feet, furious and shaking with humiliation. Hacket stood up too, an impatient scowl on his usually amiable face. "I mean only that you have not enough food at your table. Is that so bad? Why must you get angry with me? Come, I have plenty. Take half and let's forget the matter. It's stupid to quarrel." "It's stupid to waste pity on your friends, who do not need it," yelled Ranofer. "Merciful Osiris," said a mild voice behind him. He whirled and saw the ancient standing there, his hands parting the thin curtain of sedge stalks which hid their nest from the path. Beyond him was the placid, soft-eyed face of the donkey Lotus. "Will there be a fight soon?" the old man inquired. "Perhaps you would let me watch it. I enjoy a good fight on occasion." "Nay, we are not going to fight," Ranofer muttered. "We are friends." "Friends? Are you indeed?" The ancient's straggly-eyed brows climbed halfway up his forehead. "Now that's an odd thing. When I was a youth, friends laughed together and spoke in peaceable voices. Only enemies stood glaring and yelling, with their fists doubled. But then, times change." He shrugged and sighed so philosophically that Hacket burst out laughing, and even Ranofer smiled sheepishly. "Come on, old one," Hacket said. "You be our judge. This fellow here has more pride than Pharaoh. He considers himself too fine to accept a gift of something we both know he needs and wants." "What gift?" asked the ancient, pursing his lips judiciously. "Food. Look at the flesh on his ribs, if you can find any. Yet he insists that I sit here like a pig in a trough, rooting my way through cheese and fish and bread and figs, while he eats a wilted onion. Is he a friend when he finds pleasure in ruining the taste of everything for me?" "Aye," Hacket gave a defiant kick at the food scattered upon the matted ground. "If you will not take half this stuff, then I don't want the other half." I did not know I was ruining the taste," Ranofer said humbly. The ancient began to chuckle. "You need no judge." "I see, but perhaps you will let me share your bower, which was my lotuses before you came. I have food to eat, too." "Come in," Ranofer stepped back as Hacket triumphantly began arranging the food in 2 piles. "This place was your donkey's?" "Aye. How did you think such a nice little nest was made? It is his rolling place. I eat my bread, and he takes his midday rest here. There is no matter. He can make another as easily as you can eat that cheese. Smiling slyly at Ranofer, the old man lowered himself to the ground and took a packet from his sash. Now then, let us barter. In exchange for a fig or two, I will share my Nelumbo nuts, the best you ever ate. Done, Haket said promptly, handing over a fig. Ranofer liked Nelumbo nuts, but figs were food for the gods, and to him rare as rain in Egypt. He hesitated just long enough for the ancient to add quickly, a fig or whatever else you care to barter. A loaf, perhaps, Ranofer said self-consciously. He could not yet feel it was really his loaf to barter. Half a loaf, that's a fairer trade, the ancient told him. He unwrapped his packet, in which were onions and a salt fish, and placed the fig and the half-loaf beside him, gravely. Then he produced from another fold of his voluminous sash one of the cone-shaped fruits of the Nelumbo plant. There were fully 25 seeds studding the top of it, each as large as the end of his thumb. When they were cracked, and the almond-like sweet white nuts inside freed from the bitter green leaf that separated their two lobes, they added the last touch to what seemed to Ranofer a feast suitable for Pharaoh himself and all his court. It was true, too, that Haket appeared to enjoy his share the more for watching Ranofer eat. When he took out his knife and cut into the lotus root, he offered Ranofer a wedge of it. Nay, Ranofer said, I was not lying. I really do not like those. And I really do, so I was not lying either, at least not about that, Haket said blandly, offering the wedge to the ancient instead. Well, I'd be lying if I refused it, said the old man, taking it off the point of Haket's knife. To Ranofer he added, I'll show you where the Nelumbos grow. There's a good stand of them just yonder toward the river. You could have them every day if you wanted. Who is it sets your table, young one, that you have only a wilted onion for your midday meal? My half-brother, Gabu, the stone-cutter. I'm apprenticed to him. It is little food for such hard work. It is not always so little. This morning I had lentils. Besides, it is no matter. I will not be at such work long, if I can help it. Nay, then what do you mean to do? I mean to be a goldsmith like my father. A goldsmith? Aye, that is a fine craft. The ancient's sharp eye lingered a moment on Ranofer's face before he added dubiously, It is also a difficult craft, young one, I have heard tell. Haket dusted the crumbs from his fingers. He tells you one half of it, ancient, and not the other, like the dog who confesses he ate the bone when the whole haunch is missing. Last winter he was more skilled than any apprentice at Rex the goldsmith's, though he worked only as a porter. His father taught him more of gold work than I'll know before another year has passed. But how is it then that you now work on the stones? Asked the ancient. Because, Ranofer broke off, exchanging a glance with Haket, whose lips were tightly shut. Because of a wineskin, Ranofer finished. I do not care if he knows, Haket. He will say nothing. Let us tell him. They did so, while the reeds rustled stiffly in the sun-heated air, and the old donkey chewed patiently on the leaves a little distance away, where he had rolled himself out another nest. Before the meal was finished and the story ended, there were 3 friends instead of 2 in the little green-walled chamber. When they parted on the path a few moments later, Haket said, Let us meet again tomorrow. Will you come, ancient? Aye, unless I'm hired at the docks to haul cargo, or unless Lord Crocodile gets me first. The old man's shrill cackle sounded as he tugged his donkey to its feet. Watched any hangings lately? He added slyly to Ranofer. Nay. Hi, that's right, that's wise. Trouble enough in this world without borrowing from others. Well, may Ra shine upon you, and Mother Moot as well. The ancient and his little beast trudged off through the papyrus, and the boys went back to their tasks, Ranofer strengthened by the unaccustomed food and companionship, and buoyant with the thought of more tomorrow.